So, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 4629. Are we on? Something like that, of the Tarot On videos that we're doing in the midst of the global pandemic of 2020. I hope everyone is doing okay, staying healthy, sane, safe, and looking after yourselves and those around you. If I can look after my microphone nearly half as well, then we'll all be on to a winner. So there we go. So what I'm going to cover today is the Celtic cross. That's what we're going to cover today. Hello to some welcome faces in the group. Hello Derek. And what we're going to do, hello Evelyn and Adela and Anna. So far we've got about 11 people watching. Several people watch this as a recording, so hello to you watching this as a recording. So what I'm going to cover is the Celtic cross in brief, because I've been working on the magazine today, the Chesed International magazine, which is free to all Tarot Association members, and it's a great issue this time round. We've got numerology, crystal casting, cartomancy, tarot, and there was something else. Did I mention numerology? I lost count. But yeah, it's a whole load of different subjects for this issue. So I've been putting that together, and that should be out and available tomorrow, I hope, as a PDF for members, because the print version we're not going to rush, because I might add a few adverts into it for the print version, but that will come out probably in the autumn when we do the second issue for this year. So, and hello to Sharon and Rebecca and Lily as well. Hello everyone. So we're going to be reading our bedtime story. We left Lola trying to sort out all of the houses below the fourth house, and she's got to face the abyss quite shortly, if I recall the story correctly. So we're almost at the top of the tree, and it gets weirder and weirder the higher up we go, as we read through Wake World by Aleister Crowley in Conks on Pax. So I'm going to cover the Celtic cross in brief. The material that I have printed out for today is actually in Chesed International Volume 1, Issue 2, which was about 10 years ago. And I'm going to share with you, if you're not a Tarot Association member yet, some of the content of the magazine, because it has some of the very first versions of the Celtic cross from the Golden Dawn archives in the magazine article. I actually went back to all of this material a couple of years ago and wrote a Kindle book called Secrets of the Celtic Cross. Why waste a good title? So we've got Secrets of the Celtic Cross, Secrets of the Thoth Tarot, and Secrets of the Waite Smith Tarot. And so we're going to cover some of the secrets of the Celtic Cross today. In the book, which is only on Kindle at the moment, but I'm going to use some of the time over the next few weeks and months maybe, making sure that all of our Kindle books are in print and our print books are on Kindle and so on, our self-published ones anyway. I went back to the Celtic cross and wrote down, and what's in the book is some of the stuff I'm going to talk about today, as to how I resolve some of the problems in the Celtic cross, and very simply how I do a reading with it, because it's one of my favourite fixed spreads, because I sort of grew up with it, and hopefully what we cover today will explain some of the things that people have problems with this spread sometimes and don't like it, and some people really love it. It's a sort of Arthur Edward Waite Marmite spread. And as we're about to find out, Arthur Edward Waite didn't design this spread. It was first published by him, but he didn't design it. It's not ancient, it's not Celtic, and it's not really a cross. So Arthur Edward Waite's Ancient Celtic Cross, it's not Arthur Edward Waite's, It's not Celtic, it's not ancient, and it's not really a cross. So other than that, the title's fine. It is a spread. And that's about all that's true with the title to the actual origins of the spread itself. So we have covered in brief some of the Diane, sorry, just on a side thing, asked the Sabian symbols about the sessions. Got Libra 5, a man teaching true inner knowledge, and that's a lot better than the example I gave when I opened the book next to my head and got an old man desperately trying to teach the mysteries or something like that. I told Lynn about that a couple of days ago, and yeah, he didn't think it was particularly funny. He just thought it was true. So right, now then. So Celtic cross, let's get on with this. So we have covered and touched on our Thoth material and our Arthur Edward Waite material with the Waite Smith tarot. The fact that both Crowley and Waite were drawing from the Golden Dawn for their main material, for their tarot teaching. They both extended it and had their own sources as well. But in essence, it was the Golden Dawn that set them up with the tarot. So Eliphas Levi, Kenneth Mackenzie, Golden Dawn, Mathers, Westcott, Woodman, and then on to Waite and Crowley, and from there more contemporary authors like Eden Gray, and then Rachel Pollack, Mary Greer, and then on from there have been these sort of waves of teaching with tarot, and one wave does follow another. So with the Celtic cross, what happened was in the Golden Dawn you had to understand the correspondences, as we've been looking at the Tree of Life and all of the correspondences. These were kept secret by the Golden Dawn. You only learned them when you became an initiate. You only learned the Hebrew letters and their correspondence to the tarot and where they went on the tree once you were initiated. So at the time it was a secret. One that Crowley dismissed as being everything that, you know, any elementary boy at grammar school would have known about when they were inducted into these infamous Golden Dawn mysteries. And then he went and published them, of course, just to give a total spoiler to the whole of the Golden Dawn. But in the meantime, the oaths were kept seriously. They did keep them seriously. But unfortunately, what it meant was that if you did have and were about to publish a deck of tarot cards, as Waite was about to do in 1909, you were a little bit stumped as to telling people how to read them. You were really stuck, basically, because as a member of the Golden Dawn you couldn't tell people the correspondences and the opening of the key method to do the counting, so that you'd know how to count from one card to another. You couldn't tell people that you counted the cards from which way the significator was facing. You went that way if it was facing that way, and that way if it was facing that way. You counted the cards in a row based on their complex or simple but fairly complex correspondences. So what Waite did was he went back to his earlier work, and then sort of found some cartomancy sort of language which he put into pictorial key. But for the spread, what he did was, there is an earlier version in the Golden Dawn notebooks. Look at this, and that is an example of a what does it say, another method of divination. Another method of divination, and we can see that they've actually put in a sort of the cards here and some text to describe what's in each position. But you can see it's a very loose cross, and interestingly enough, this bit is on the left, not on the right. So it's a very loose method. So when I first found that, that's in Warburg, I think. That That's really excellent, because that means that the Golden Dawn were using this method, but maybe Waite still invented it, or perhaps this method was dated in such a way that Waite's book had come out and a member of the Golden Dawn had written it into their notebook. But then what I found was it's mislabeled in the Warburg as a gypsy method of divination by F.L. Gardner. That's actually what it says in the catalogue, and so no one was particularly interested in it, because they hadn't really bothered looking at it. But because my interest is in tarot, I thought, oh, I'll have a look at that. I wonder what the gypsy method is by F.L. Gardner. And it's a typescript. It's called NS 103.12, a gypsy method of divination by F.L. Gardner, Golden Dawn folder 3, typescripts by various authors. The Warburg collection of Crowley material in which this is totally random. A lot of it, you have to actually get the folders out, and you're only allowed to take one item out of the folder at a time, take it to a desk in full sight, and this is because people used to steal some of the material, so some of the original Crowley material has been stolen over time, but that doesn't happen anymore. And so it takes a while to actually find something if you don't know what you're looking for, if you're just browsing in effect. When I first went there about 25 years ago, they just gave me all of Crowley's notebooks that I asked for, a big pile of them. I took them into a little lobby room just by myself, and I could have just walked out with a whole load of them in my rucksack and no one would have noticed for years. But again, they've changed all of that, thank goodness. So this particular method then, it says, you can't really see it very clearly here, but it says a gypsy method of divination by Frater de Profundis ad Lucem, which was F.L. Gardner's magical name. F.L. Gardner was a very hard-hitting member of the Golden Dawn. But the method sort of is a typescript, and it's got a few handwritten notes on it, and it sort of talks about this particular method, which is it starts to look very familiar, and then as the pages turn, you suddenly realise that he is talking about, oops, I'll just have to turn the pages manually. Talk amongst yourselves for a second. Right at the bottom, we see for the very first time, and I've made it a bit larger so that we can see it, a non-order method. Can you see where it says a non-order method? And that is our very first Celtic cross. But it's not called a Celtic cross, it's called another method of divination, non-order method. That is to say that you can actually do this method as a member of the Golden Dawn without giving anything away. And so Waite had obviously seen this in the Golden Dawn and thought, well, I can use that. And he put it in the first version of Pictorial Key. He actually put it in as another method of divination. He took the title, but he didn't say it was a non-order method because he didn't want to say which order he was in or anything. So he took this method, almost as described here, and then added a load of cartomantic stuff at the beginning and slammed it into his book, and that's where we get it from. Now, that was in the first little box set of the Waite-Smith Tarot that came out by Ryder. Unfortunately, because it got recalled, because the glue and the cardboard were coming off the backs of the cards, they had a second go at it with a sort of more normal size paperback, because the original Pictorial Key is only a little book about this big, and it's got a wonderful Aruba serpent engraved on the front. It came in this wonderful little red box with the tarot cards, and the cardboard is so thick that the deck is about this thick compared to a modern deck which is about this thick. So you can really tell the difference in the cardboard. However, the second publication, they had changed it the title of this not to another method of divination, but to something like an ancient Celtic method, or the Celtic cross. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but all of a sudden it became a Celtic method. And the only reason was because there was a lot of interest in Ireland at the time. A lot of Celtic revivalism was going on with Yeats and everyone else. And so they just thought it would be cool to call it Celtic. And that's how it became a Celtic cross. It wasn't even called a cross in the beginning because it wasn't necessarily meant to be, this is a cross in the middle, but these are more of a circle if we imagine it. And the way I imagine this is as a wheel that's on a road. So this is the road and this is the wheel, and that's the axle of the wheel in the middle. And I use that idea, with that being the road, to help me do the reading. Okay, so what we're going to do is look at the positions as I use them, and you can find out more about this in Secrets of the Celtic Cross on Kindle, or in issue 2 of the Teosophist International magazine if you're a member. The main problem, and you'll notice in most of the books that then followed Waite by calling this the ancient Celtic cross, some of them then started to say this had been used by the ancient Celts for time immemorial. Some of them just ignore the title. And even now on websites you say you can read this method has been used for hundreds of years. It hasn't. It's only been used mainly by people since 1909 when Waite published it. So maybe 100 years at the very least. So the problem is that Waite's description and his diagram, because he was riffing off this F.L. Gardner version that had come before, and whether F.L. Gardner developed it or whether he got the idea from a pamphlet, a cartomancy pamphlet, or whether it was one of Mather's spreads that Mathers had taught Gardner, we'll never know. Well, not at the moment. Yeah, you could see it as an equal on cross as well. Sometimes people say this is the bottom of the cross that's been put to the side so that you don't have to lay it all out down below. But we can see from the original description of it that it was a sort of cross with these cards on this side, not on the side that Waite put them on. And the problem is this, is in the original method you would know you would be using a Golden Dawn deck, even though one wasn't published at the time, and the court card that you would put as the significator would face left or right, and that would tell you whether this was the past or the future. And that is why some versions of this have past there and future there, and some have future there and past there. They just swap them around because originally there wasn't any clear idea, because the method can't be used with the text that goes with it to determine left and right, and Waite couldn't give that away, so he was in a bit of a bind. So there's a lot of confusion that then arises from this, and then people start to read it very differently over time. And you can read all of the original instructions in the magazine and in the book, because I've reproduced them so that you can actually go through them and confuse yourself all over again, and then see a better version, I think, or the version I use of reading it. So in brief, for the next 10 minutes I'll just tell you how I go about reading this, and this is covered on some of our courses as well. So when I do a Celtic cross, I look at it very much like an arrow with a sort of stabilizer going across it, like that. So an arrow, and almost like a bow being drawn back like that, pointing the arrow upwards. So I see it as a road with a wheel on it, but I also see it as an arrow with a bow pointed upwards. And then this side, I take those two cards together and those two cards together. Okay? And I tend to do a lot of pairing in this reading, so these two cards I pair, and those two cards I pair as well, the top and the bottom one here. Okay, and the way I go about doing it is very simple. The axle of the wheel is basically who you are and what you're facing. They say in fiction, when you're writing fiction, that a character is always revealed by their actions. You don't say what a character is like, and bad writing always has. I'm watching a load more TV than I usually watch, and bad writing is when someone says, yes, well, they've always been a son of a bitch, and you're supposed to take that from a character as another character's description, whilst also thinking, well, sometimes people don't describe people accurately, but in a drama, then someone describes someone and you have to mentally go, I trust what they say, and that is because it's a very lazy way to describe a character. But basically, you reveal a character by their actions if it's good writing and good drama. But in order to do that, you have to challenge them. So you have to have a antagonist for the protagonist, and then you can give them loads of challenges, and then they have to face those challenges, and their character is revealed through all of the things that they face, like the hero's journey, for example, or the fool's journey. The fool is challenged by each of the cards in some way, and that adds to their character or reveals something about their character that they then discard an attachment to in order to attain enlightenment at the top of the tree. But here we can do that by these first two cards. We have the protagonist and the antagonist. We have the person as they are, the significator card, the court card, or the situation card if you place it on top of the significator, and then the card crossing them provides their challenge, and that is how their character will be revealed. It is the challenge they are facing in order, and they have to and they must, and that's why the situation is as it is, as the center of their wheel. The axle is them versus their challenge, because there's a saying that I have that we become that with which we fight. Whatever we are fighting, we become that as we fight it. Whatever we are wrestling internally, that is us. That is really us. We become that which we fight. That's why it's best to choose your fights, and why it's best not to waste your time fighting against certain things, because you end up becoming exactly that which you fight. And that is the center of your axle, and the center of the axle for your client, for your sitter, for your querent, for your seeker, whatever you want to call them. Friend, family, loved one. So that's how I read that. That is them and their situation, and that is what they have to overcome. Now, in order to overcome that, they have to draw on their resources. So they pulled the bow back here, and they draw on their resources. So this foundation card, what is below them, as it's described in the text, I use as their resources. Whatever is here, they can draw on most successfully to aim upwards, to get through this situation. And sometimes I jam the card, I move the card on the table and say, this is your resource, and I bang it against these cards here to really demonstrate that. And later on in the reading, I move that card and I place it up here, because I like to actually symbolize what's going on inside the unconscious by keying certain things, showing that that can't be moved, and then a bit later on just suddenly moving that card up there, and the unconscious will automatically go, oh, I can get around that problem, without even flagging that to the client. They may not even realize why I put the card up on top of this one. So it's a nice trick. You can do this with all of the cards. You can move past and future closer together on the table while describing it, and that makes something more immediate. Don't waste your symbolism off the actual table and the cards and the spread itself. You can do all sorts of wonderful little tricks by moving the cards, jamming them, tapping them, spreading them out, stacking them, and so on, that will send a message to the unconscious once you feed it in. Okay, so So that's their resource, that's what they can draw on. And if it's a court card, it's a part of themselves they can draw on. If it's a minor card, it is a relationship to the situation as it's going on that they can learn from in order to go beyond. And if it's a major card, then it's an archetypal pattern that's repeating itself often in their lives in order to learn the resource so that they can move on beyond it. And then you can compare that, whether it's a court card, minor card, major card, to the court card, major card, minor card in the middle as well, and that can give you some deeper insight as well. And of course you can do all of the Kabbalah stuff. You can look at the numbers that you're getting as to how far through the process they are. If it's a load of majors, it's an archetypal pattern in general, a constellation of archetypes, and so on. So you can add all of that in and layer it as much as you want, but keeping it simple: protagonist, antagonist, hero, challenge, resource. Okay, then this top card here sort of matches this card over here a little bit, and sometimes people get these a bit confused. So to keep it clear, I just have this card as what you should aim for. So you should set your sights on whatever is described by this card. If it's a court card, it's the sort of person you should try and become. If it's a minor card, the sort of actions you should take. If it's a major card, then it's the sort of pattern that you should adopt in your life and embody. So that gives you a wonderful forward direction on our road model, with a straight axle in the middle that isn't going to wobble. Because if you're fighting something that you shouldn't be fighting, or not learning the lesson and not holding fast to it, then you end up wobbling. The wheel still goes on, things go on, time changes, but it still wobbles. And this is to try and make the smoothest journey on this road. So resource, what you should aim for, challenge, and situation. Then past and future, I keep those nice and simple. So there's the past, there's the future, and that basically gives you time so that you can move forwards, going this way, on the road of time. So on the road of space and time, you can move forwards because you've got past and future, past and future. And then I look at those two cards and I say, this is sort of moving away, this is the influence that you should be letting go of or learning from, and this is what is heading towards you now, and this is what you need to face by having this strong axle, keeping your sights on this one and drawing on this resource, then you can face this. Then you end up with a sort of nice triangle going that way, as this card and this card allow you to face the future by having something to aim for and clear in your mind. Drawing this resource, you can marshal all of your past and your experience through this axle and go into the future with confidence and with a smooth wheel. But then you've got your road, and this is more to do with the outside world, or your relationship to it is the road, because all this is very internal and is inside someone's head, but then this is the sort of point that it touches the road. In the future, this future card, that's where the contact is with the road of actual reality. It's a bit like they say, a plan only lasts until contact with the enemy, and then your plan goes out the window because you then have to deal with the situation. So hello to Charlotte, who's joined us as well. So here we have these two cards. They're described very differently in different books. What I do is I say, this is how you see yourself, and this is how other people see you. This is how you see yourself, and this is how other people see you. And quite often this little pairing really explains why people aren't dealing with you or supporting you or reacting to you in the way that you're expecting. And it can be, this is really useful in family situations, in relationships, in workplaces, questions, because quite often these are very different, really funnily different sometimes, and usually the person understands exactly this card, how they see themselves, even if they don't want to admit it, and is very surprised about the other card, how other people see them. So, for example, this card could be, I don't know, say the Eight of Cups or something, showing a sort of character walking away, being all sad and stuff. And then this card could be like the Strength card. And it's like, why can't people see the fact that I need support, or I need help, or I'm lonely, or I'm going away, I'm trying to leave? And then this card is like, well, they see you as being a really strong character. You're holding the lion, and that's how they see you. So then you can work out with these cards, and quite often the resource card comes in here as well, how to go about reacting or changing or incorporating this into the client's life. What do they need to change? Do they need to tell people more? Do they need to make it clearer? Or sometimes it could be quite a good combination. It's great that people see you like this whilst you get on with what's actually going on inside. And the tarot sees how you see yourself inside, and then you can work with that with what's going on here as well, quite often with the axle. Okay, so I pair those two, and then this card is very important. I sometimes take this out of the reading slightly and put it over here on the table, and I say this card is, in the books it's quite often hopes or fears, and it never makes it clear how to read the card as a hope or a fear. So what I call it is inconsequential concerns, or unnecessary concerns, or unnecessary imagination. This is the card within the whole reading that is not real, but feels like it, because all of these cards relate to real things, but quite often in the situation you have an aspect of it that isn't real, that you think is real. It could be a consequence to a decision or an action, or it could be a fear that you have, or an expectation, or a hope. You see, if it's an imaginary thing that is positive, then it's called a hope. You imagine something is going to happen that isn't happening yet. If it's an imaginary thing that's negative, then it's anxiety or a worry or a concern. So it is hopes or worries, but to be honest, depending on the card, both things are equally useless, because a hope can keep you going when you shouldn't be going. I hope he will stop hitting me, or I hope that they will learn their lesson, or I hope whatever it may be, that can keep you locked into a situation. So it's nice, whether it's a hope or a fear, an anxiety, to identify this card, tell the person that it's hard in a position that isn't real, and then just gently move it out of the reading a little bit. Just say, I'll just leave that card over there for now, and just take it out of the reading. And then sometimes I just don't refer to that card again. Even when I do a summary at the end of the reading, I'll do all of these and I won't even refer to that card, because unconsciously it then flags it that actually he said that wasn't important, and he's not mentioned it again. It can't be important. It's pointless doing a whole reading where you say, this card isn't important. This card really isn't important. You must forget about this card because this card isn't important. Because you're constantly flagging to the unconscious that there's something that they need to remember about the card. And you have to trust that they will forget it as well. And then finally, the outcome card is the best possible outcome, or the likely outcome given every other situation is changed. And ideally, the best possible outcome has some relationship, a bit like the resource, and these have a bit of relationship. Up at the top, this card and these two, this card and this card, the outcome and what you should be aiming for have a relationship as well. Okay, and then you can then use that card to summarize, and sometimes I take a card up and tap it and use it to point to the other cards as I then summarize the whole reading for the person in brief, ignoring that card which I've taken out. Make sense? That's a quick whistle-stop tour through how I get round the idea of trying to fix my head into, is this a hope or fear? Is this past or future? Why is this a Celtic cross? And stuff like that. Ignore all of that because none of it's real or true, not to the original. And develop your own pairing, past and future lines, resources, and so on, to deliver a wonderful Celtic cross. Say there's a bigger description and some examples and a lot more patterns within those cards that you can learn. They're in Secrets of the Celtic Cross, which is on Kindle. I'm just going to take a drink for a moment. So, an innocent day today. By innocent. So, let's see where we are with our bedtime story. Now, final 5 minutes. We had got to Lola basically doing a Christ in the temple with the money changers kicking them all out. She got to the 4th house. She had to cross the abyss, get to the 1st house, but then she realised that every single house below her, when she went back to look at them, all of the Sephiroth were claiming that they were all the 1st house. And Crowley has here, you can see they're all claiming to be the 1st house. Oh, I put the, for those watching this as recording live, I put a PDF of this in the file section of the Tarot Professionals Facebook group. So where hopefully you're watching this within the Tarot Professionals Facebook group, in which case, if you're not, then this has been copied somewhere. But there is a PDF of Wait World now in there. I'd ask you not to read ahead if you want to read along with me, but feel welcome to do so if you want. So, so she got very furious about this, and then went back and wrote the proper numbers on them, and a little sarcastic remark to make them all ashamed, so that they read, like the 7th house, external splendor, internal corruption. And then she put, and on each one I put, no thoroughfare from here to the 1st house. The only way is outdoors, by order. So, this was frightfully annoying, because in the old days we could walk about inside everywhere and not get wet if it rained, but nowadays there isn't any way from the 4th to the 3rd house. And just before we go on, we can just explain that, just need to explain that briefly from the diagram. That once we get to the 4th house, there's no way directly across the abyss into the 3rd house to continue our path 3, 2, 1 going up here. So in a sense we've got a choice. We either go back and up, or we go back and up, but there's no direct path going this way, because we have this abyss as it's seen separating the top of the tree with the middle bit. So I'll just continue to read. And we've got some numerology and letters coming up, and you can see that Crowley has footnoted these with their Hebrew equivalents down the side here, and these basically relate simply to the tarot card symbols, the planetary correspondences and so forth, that would be taught in the Golden Dawn, and I teach in my system as well. So, this was frightfully annoying, because in the old days we could walk about inside everywhere and not get wet if it rained, but nowadays there isn't any way from the 4th to the 3rd house. You could go, of course, by chariot from the 5th to the 3rd, or through the house where the twins live from the 6th to the 3rd, but that isn't allowed unless you've been to the 4th house too, and go from there at the same time. It was here that they told me what T-A-R-O on the ring meant. First, it means gate, and it is the name of my fairy prince when you spell it in full, letter by letter. There are 78 parts to it, which make a perfect plan of the whole palace. So you can always find your way if you remember to say T-A-R-O. Then you remember I-N-R-I was on the ring too. INRI is short for LVX, lux, which means the brilliance of the wide, wide wake light. And that too is the name of my fairy prince, only spelt short. The Romans said it had 65 parts, which is 5 times 13, and 78 is 6 times 13. To get into the wake world, you must know your 13 times table quite well. So if you take them both together, that makes 11 times 13. And then you say abrahadabra, which is a most mysterious word because it has 11 letters in it. You remember the houses are numbered both ways, so that the third house is called the eighth house too, and the fifth, the sixth, and so on. But you can't tell what lovely thing that means till you've been through them all and got to the very end. So when you look at the king and see INRI and tarot on it, when you look at the ring and see INRI and tarot on it, that means that it is like a policeman keeping on saying, "Pass along, please." I would have liked to stay in the fourth house all my life, but I began to see it was just a little dream house too, and I couldn't rest because my own house was the very next one. But it's too awful to tell you how to get there. You want the most fearful lot of courage, and there's nobody to help you, nobody at all, and there's no proper passage. But it's frightfully exciting, and you must wait till next time before I tell you how I started on that horrible journey and if I ever got there or not. It's nice for Crowley to put an actual break, a dramatic break in it as well. But obviously the next section is going into the inner college, the third college, beyond the abyss, and reading towards the end. So we'll continue with our Wake World story tomorrow, and if you've got any questions about the reading, about the tarot, then obviously we have a wonderful Facebook group for us all to discuss that, and I look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow, sane, safe, healthy, and well. Okay, take care everyone. Bye for now.